Welcome to the Career Changemaker podcast, where we focus on owning your career journey and making impact through the work that you do. Whether you're looking to pivot, transition into leadership, or reimagine your career completely, this podcast is for you. We'll unpack career development strategies, leadership insights, and the mindset shifts needed to thrive in your career. Being a career changemaker means taking control and shaping your professional path with intention. I'm your host, lawyer turned career and leadership development specialist, Janine Esbrand. So if you're ready for candid conversations that are going to help you grow, keep listening. Hello, and welcome to the show. If you have been looking around and noticing how quickly the world of work is changing, and you're wondering whether or how you should skill up and ensure that your expertise remains relevant, this episode is for you. I am joined by the amazing Elizabeth Lotardo, who is the author of the book Leading Yourself, and she is also a LinkedIn learning instructor, and she is digging into the power and importance of leading yourself and developing the type of skill set that is required for you to thrive wherever you are. Such a good conversation. There's so much in here for you to learn, so I suggest you go and grab a notebook, get comfortable, and let's dive into my conversation with Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. Can you start by introducing yourself to the audience and letting them know a bit about you?
So I'm Elizabeth Lotardo. I'm the author of the book Leading Yourself. I'm an employee engagement consultant, and I'm also a LinkedIn learning instructor, and I've had the privilege of teaching over 2 million people how to lead themselves.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. When we talk about leadership, people often don't talk about the leading yourself aspect. So I'm excited for us to dig into that. But before we do that, tell me a bit about how you landed here. So being a LinkedIn learning instructor, employee engagement, is that where you started out? Or where did you start out to get to this point?
No, I certainly did not. I've taken a lot of twists and turns. So I started my career in advertising. I was always fascinated with communication and the way people feel and how you could change the way they feel with words. And I got burned out really quickly, like a lot of people do in advertising. And my life started to feel really transactional. So through some, mid-20s soul searching, quarter life crisis, I guess, I went back to school to study organizational psychology and internal communications, and I zoomed in focusing on employee engagement. And since then, my research has been around what creates a highly engaged person and what skills can we learn to engage ourselves.
I love that. Are there any things that were quite surprising to you as you got into studying that topic around employee engagement? Because I don't think it's necessarily a topic that everyone thinks about unless you're in this space. So what came up for you in your research that was surprising that would be good for people to kind of be more cognizant of?
So I'll tell you, I had 8 months of researcher heartbreak where I went round and round and round where my theories were constantly disproven. So I set out to explore what conditions create employee engagement. Is it this much of a good boss? Is it this much of, great systems and great pay? Like trying to find the recipe, almost like a scientist of how can we make the perfect formula to make sure someone is engaged. And I did hundreds of qualitative interviews with people who consider themselves engaged, and their boss agreed, and their work output certainly indicated that. And I couldn't figure it out. I went round and round because as soon as I thought I had it, another person wouldn't have any of those ingredients that I thought were so important. And I was driving myself insane. And then I realized I was asking the wrong question. It wasn't what conditions create engagement. It was what skills enable someone to engage themselves in a variety of conditions. And once I started asking the right question, my research became a lot easier because there is actually an answer to that. So once I zoomed in on the skill set that sits beneath the engagement instead of the conditions, I was able to piece out these sort of behavioral shifts, the mindset shifts that predict whether someone will be engaged or not. And more importantly, how to learn those if you feel like you're disengaged right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. One of the things I talk about a lot is taking an inside out approach to things rather than an outside in. And that really sounds like that. Like initially you're like, okay, what are the external conditions? And then you got to the place where it's like, oh no, it's about the person and it's about the skills that they have. and that's where you're able to find the patterns. That's so interesting. So can you share a bit about what are some of those things? What are some of those skills that you found to be the consistent,
So
you know?
yeah, the consistencies, there were no conditional consistencies, but there were consistencies in skill. But what I think would be worth talking about is the mindsets that sit
Mm-hmm.
beneath those skills. Because yes, there are a lot of behavioral things as it relates to goal setting and leading up, but the bedrock of the ability to engage yourself sits with a couple of key mindset shifts. And that's the ability to find meaning in the work
Mm-hmm.
you're doing, even if it's hard, even if it's boring, you can tap into why it's meaningful. You can sit with uncertainty and know that you're going to figure it out.
Mm,
You can operate in the face of fear. Even when you're afraid, you can say the truth. Even when you're afraid, you raise your hand, you go for it. And you have the ability to remove yourself from a mental rut. I'm sure we've all heard the expression that self-fulfilling cycle, like my work is bad, so I only see
mm-hmm.
the bad things, so then it becomes worse. For someone to engage themselves, they need to develop the mindset and the skills to remove themselves from that cycle. And it is challenging, but possible.
Yeah.
And what I found is that the 170 something people who were highly engaged, different industries, different levels, different salaries, different degrees of ambition, they were all able to do those four things. So then I set out on, okay, so I'm not born with those. How do I learn? And how can the rest of us who can default to grouchy and transactional get out in front of that?
Yeah, that's so good. So for those people who had that ability or those abilities to do that and to adapt, were they aware of that, or was it kind of like they just were doing it and they didn't realize they were doing it?
Some of both. Some people were born with a natural propensity to self leadership. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not one of those people, but some people are. And some people learned through great mentors, through self study, through taking in feedback, through personal development. They taught themselves, even if they weren't calling it self leadership or
Right.
saying, I'm learning how to find meaning in my work. That's what they were doing beneath the surface.
Yeah. So how do you then guide people who are in that camp where what you said, like that's not my natural bent, or that's not what I'm naturally inclined towards? What's the first step for people to be able to say, okay, now I recognize that these are areas that I need to work on so that I can find fulfillment and be engaged where I am? What are like first, second, third steps that people should take? Because I can imagine it can feel a bit overwhelming for some people to be like, oh, okay, so there's lots that I need to do, rather than feeling like it's a environmental issue.
It can be overwhelming, but I think it's important to realize there's no deadline, first of all.
Mm,
There's no, like, finish on the journey of self-leadership, and a little progress is still progress, right? Eating 1 piece of broccoli, yeah, you should be having 2 cups, but 1 piece is better than none, so let's start with something small. So, one of my favorite introductory hacks to self leadership is a practice called This Is My Chance. And I
mm-hmm,
first learned this in the motherhood space, actually, from a motherhood coach named Tessa Romero. And I found myself using this practice in my own work. And the way it works is to, when you are confronted with a change, disruption, uncertainty, something annoying, you use the mental jogger of This Is My Chance to force your brain to find an opportunity inside of
mm,
that. So let's use a motherhood example first, and then we'll jump to work. Your kid throws up in the middle of the night the day before Christmas, right? You're like, "Oh, I had so many good plans. This was going to be so special, and now we're all going to get the stomach flu, and what if I have the stomach flu too, and this is the worst Christmas ever." Right? It's really easy to go there in a split second. Using This Is My Chance, you can flip your brain in that moment. Say, okay, this is my chance to show up really nurturing. This is my chance to embody what it means to have Christmas as a family, to redefine our transitions, to slow down, to be more low key. You have to force yourself to find the win for you
mm.
in that situation. And I don't want to equate that to toxic positivity. Like, we're not going to take an abusive boss and be like, this is my chance to be resilient. Um, but in the face of normal annoyance, unexpected events that we're all experiencing, that mindset puts your brain instantly in the power position
Mm.
and enables you to define proactively how you want to show up and do that with more energy.
Yeah, I love that. That makes me think of the whole, you can't control the situation, but you can control how you respond. And when I think for me recently or this year, I had an injury that took me out for like 4 months. And I was determined that there must be something that comes good of this. And
Yeah.
so I've been able to kind of say, okay, yeah, in that downtime, I've been able to slow down and see things differently and reassess and all of that. And it's such a shift and it makes such a difference to how you feel when you're able to say, okay, here's a scenario, here's a situation, let me make it work to my benefit versus it happening to me and me being like, this is the worst thing ever. So I love that reframe.
Well, and there's some fascinating physiological research to back that up that would suggest you healed faster because that was your mindset.
Mm,
Versus if you were sitting there anxious and stewing, saying, 4 months, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. This shouldn't have happened to me. The data would suggest that because you would have higher cortisol, because you would be able to think less strategically, because your sleep would have less REM sleep in it when you're operating in that mentality, you will heal slower. Versus
yes.
taking your approach of, okay, there's going to be something good in this. I'm going to slow down. Your physical body improves
Right.
faster.
Right. And that just shows the whole connection of everything, right? Because I think sometimes we can compartmentalize of, okay, this is the physical, this is my mental. It's like you're one person and all of the different parts of you are working together. So having that recognition, so, so helpful.
Absolutely. There's a lot of research around that. And you and I could get woo woo real fast on this conversation in terms of like the body remembers and how our mental state is often quite predictive of our physical state. It's a leading indicator. We know that mental unrest manifests in a variety of ways, and physical symptoms is one of those.
Yeah. So good. Oh yeah, we could definitely go down a rabbit hole. Um, so tell me more about kind of some of the concepts that you've shared in your book that you think are most impactful for either the individuals or the organizations that you've been working with when they realize that, oh, this is one, a concept, and two, we can apply this to help us to um, operate better on the whole.
One of the shifts that I've seen most powerful, especially in the corporate space, is shifting goals from output based to input based. And what I mean by that is most people in a corporate setting are handed some type of metric to hit, like the outcome, your desired point at the end of the quarter, end of the year. And what happens is, as people, we know a lot goes into that we don't control, right? If I'm a
Mm,
salesperson and I'm given a number, yeah, I can do my part, but like, what about our competitors? What about the economy? What about all of these things? So we feel anxious. And we sit in that, crossing our fingers that we hit the goal. And if we hit it, we feel relieved, very temporarily so. And if we don't, we feel terrible, even if we did all the right things. So to put self-leadership into the goal conversation, you have to extrapolate out the inputs of that goal. What are the things mostly in your control and point the energy there? So for a salesperson, we get a quota. I know I can make 25 calls a day to my customers. I know I can follow up with everybody in 48 hours. I know that I can practice important presentations with my buddy who sits next to me, right? I'm going to point my anxiousness, my franticness, my worry towards those actions.
mm,
And it drastically increases the likelihood that they meet the goal. And in the event they don't, they bounce back faster because they know they did their part, and it's not just, oh, I guess it's all hopeless, right? We're better able to identify why and pivot and rebound quicker. So I think that simple practice, and you can do it in your own mind, even if you don't like do it out loud to your manager, of shifting from, okay, there's this thing I have to achieve. Let me back out all of my behavior and everything that's in my control of that and focus my energy there.
yeah, that's so good. It really is about starting with the end in mind, right? Like, what am I trying to achieve? And then breaking that down. And I think that also takes away some of the feeling of hopelessness that people have, where it's just like, oh, it's this massive goal. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. And sometimes we can make that bigger in our heads. And then when you do that, okay, let me break it down. Like, how many calls is it? How many people? And it's like, oh, okay, it's only 5 calls a day, or it's only what, it's manageable. Whereas when it's in our heads, it feels so much bigger until we do that. breakdown. So
Yeah, I've trained hundreds, if not thousands of people this year so far, and I don't know of a single one who said my goal is not that ambitious, right?
mm,
My company handed me something that's really
I
easy.
should be able to do
I'm
it.
gonna have such a laid back year. I haven't met one this year, not a single one.
Yeah,
And that's why extrapolating out the input becomes so important to us as individuals.
yeah. Oh, so good. So, so good. When you think about this work that you've been doing, how has it shifted the way that you've shown up as an individual, as a leader of your business, as you've done this research and understood this? What's changed for you specifically?
There's a saying in publishing that if you wanna know what a writer struggles with, look at the title of their book. And that certainly played out for me. I opened the book talking about my career in advertising and how I burned out really quickly. I became, like, depressed and angsty fast, and I thought that was everyone else's fault but mine.
Mm,
And through the research, I realized it was actually a little bit of other people's fault, but mostly my fault that that happened. And I didn't see the power that I had, how I could have shifted my mindset, the skills I was lacking that I could have learned to change those circumstances. So, in a way, my research has been personally fueled because this was the challenge of my own life.
mm,
Feeling powerless in a job that I really wanted when I first got it, feeling discouraged at a career that I was really excited about only a few years before then. So, solving that for me and being able to learn and practice through writing and refine it and to teach it and get even better at it has made a 180 difference in my ability to own my own stuff.
that is, wow, that's so powerful because as you were speaking, it made me think about the fact that every time you put on a different or you embrace a different identity, there's like a mirror that gets held up. So I think about becoming a mother, think about becoming a business owner, becoming an author. All of those things, they just very much uncover hidden things that you didn't know were there.
That
And
is
like
so
you're
true.
just you don't I guess it's because you don't have to confront those aspects of you. I have two children. I have a daughter who's 8 and a son who's 10, and there's things that I see in them that like, oh, but it's me, it's so me, like
Yeah.
it's like a mirror, and then you're like, oh, was I like that, or am I like that? And then as you grow a business or you have to write and get things out of your head, it's like, oh, this is my stuff, and you have to really face it. And so I think often when people look to people who go out of their way to do things that are quite hard or perceived to be hard, it's not the thing so much. I think it's the courage to go there, right? It's the courage to allow yourself to open up to the point where you find out things that you didn't know were there before. I think that's the bit that is amazing, more so than the products.
I completely agree with that. And like in motherhood, I found myself sort of reparenting myself in so many ways and finding myself, having expectations that I can't meet. So why are they expectations? It it does force you into like a self-evaluation, motherhood, business, new job, like the layers of you become a little bit more obvious once you start to peel back.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about the workplace setting and people kind of elevating within the structure, so going from say individual contributor to manager to leader, how can they apply some of what you shared at those different levels, or do you see it as you're doing the same thing but you're revisiting it because more is going to be required of you as you go up the ladder?
You're doing the same thing, but you're revisiting it in a situation that is different. So,
Yeah.
for example, if you go to church, you can hear a sermon about kindness when you're in a really great place and, oh, that's nice. I love to hear, good reminders. And you can hear the same thing when you're in a different state of mind and get something completely different out of it.
Hmm.
So, it's all about how you're applying the same core in a variety of circumstances. What I think is interesting about the sort of climb the ladder mentality is it's decreasing in volume. And so many people are saying, I don't want to be a manager because it looks like it is not fun from the
Hmm.
outside. It doesn't pay as well as it used to. And we're seeing sort of an increase in specialization where manager doesn't do a lot of the work that you actually like. They just lead people, and people have caught on to the fact that that's a really different job than doing the thing that you signed up for.
Yeah.
So when we look at the total work landscape and all of those shifts happening, self leadership becomes even more important, because the reality is you're going to have a lot of jobs. You're going to work for a lot of bosses, some of who are good, some of who are not. Maybe they've done your job. Maybe they have no idea what your job even is, and they're in charge of managing you. So, your ability to put yourself in the driver's seat, take charge, set direction, motivate yourself, find meaning in the work, that is a predictive of how you will perform in all of those environments.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk a lot about being the CEO of your career and really taking ownership of the trajectory and not waiting for other people to tell you what you should do, when you should do it, and how you should manage. And I think it's important for everyone to realize that the landscape of work has changed so much. So, like you said, you could be doing multiple different jobs at different times, working with different people, and it isn't so much the hierarchy anymore. And so, it's even more important. I totally agree that.
You are the common denominator in all of your
Yeah,
workplace experiences. So, to make the biggest impact, it starts with you.
yeah, absolutely. And I think for people who have found themselves having difficult workplace situations over and over again, it is very much like, is it
Yeah,
maybe a you thing?
it's definitely giving all my exes are crazy, right?
Right.
If we continue the same cycle, at a certain point, eyebrows start to raise.
Yeah, totally. But I think it's a tough pill to swallow sometimes if you are very much used to kind of that external blame or looking at the circumstances and not so much on your contribution. But I mean, it's an invitation to do that because there's only growth that can happen on the other side of self-reflection.
It's a tough pill to swallow, but you brought up like writing a book and putting thought leadership out there, and how it can be kind of intimidating. To me, when I got the courage to do it, was when the thought of not doing it and wondering and thinking like, what could be if I did this, that became more painful than the
Mm,
possibility of bad feedback and failing.
yeah,
And I think a lot of us are in that spot with the choice to embrace self leadership, this juncture where we know the familiar hell of blaming everyone else and saying, I haven't found the perfect job yet, and it's all these other people's fault but mine, versus, okay, what part of this do I own? And I can change my circumstances by changing myself. Like, that is a decision millions and millions of people are making right now because
yeah.
of the environment we're in. And a lot of people are finding that the discomfort of staying with the current is starting to be worse than the possibility of changing.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I mean, either way you look at it, it's going to be hard, right? It's
I
hard to
do.
lead yourself and it's hard to take ownership, but it's also hard to be led by other people and feel like you're just being swayed with the wind. So ultimately, it's like pick your hard and run with it.
Yeah, well said. A lot of people find my radical accountability stance kind of offensive. And I'm always sure to preface it with, I'm not saying you should tolerate a bad boss. I'm not tolerating injustice in the workplace. Abuse and toxicity happens. It is not synonymous with that. But it is accepting the fact that there's going to be some baseline annoyance in any career, even great careers. And upskilling yourself to deal with that is of your best interest.
Mm,
Having said that, that rubs a lot of people the wrong way, or a small percentage of people. And I was giving a keynote a few weeks ago, and it's often people fill out surveys like after a keynote. And I got a lot of great feedback, and this was inspiring. I feel better, I feel empowered. And I got some like, oh, you don't get it. Not me, not my boss, blah, blah, blah. And I was going through the feedback with the conference organizers, and they were like, yeah, this rubs about 20% of people the wrong way. And that's why we like it. Because if people who want to stay in victimhood, who don't want to change, who want to point fingers around at everybody else, if they're uncomfortable, we're cool with that. And we'd like to have you back to
yeah.
make them a little bit more uncomfortable. So I think it speaks to It is a uncomfortable choice, but it's one that has a payoff. And sitting with a lack of self-leadership is also an uncomfortable choice
Hmm.
and does not have a positive payoff.
Right, right, yes. When you think about the pace at which we move and people operate, one of
Mhm.
the reasons why people might say they don't focus on kind of the self-reflection piece or even unpacking this type of thing is they haven't got time. Like, I'm so busy.
Yeah.
I just have so much going on. What would you say to that person in terms of the importance of carving out the time, or maybe the misinterpretation of how busy they are? Because I think that's a common objection that I think, I mean, there's, you make time for what's important, but I know that that's something that comes up for people. Like, I don't have time for all this thinking, and
Yeah.
you know.
I see both sides of it. On one hand, I can appreciate the research that says, and we've all read it, the more you focus on the long term, the more you think strategically, the more successful you'll be. You have to focus on the important, not the urgent, right? The four burner theory, Dory
Hmm.
Clark's work on the long game, like intellectually, we get it. I also find myself really annoyed at the people who are like, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. That's not true. You're filming your morning routine as your job, and I'm going to work. Um, so it depends on sort of, I guess, the day for me, and I do see both sides, and it's messy. I would say with a loving tone, if you feel like you don't have time, number one, we're talking about a few minutes of thinking. So look
Mm.
at your screen time and how much time you spend on social media and ask if you could cut 5 minutes out of that to sit with your thoughts. That can make a big difference. And number two, we're not speaking about huge volumes of time, right? Thinking happens while you're driving, while you're doing laundry. Whether you're rehearsing this, oh, my boss was so mean to me today, so unfair, blah, 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 they don't get it. Or whether you're rehearsing, okay, this happened. What am I going to say tomorrow? How am I going to stand up for myself? How am I going to rewrite this relationship because I'm half of it, even though I'm not the boss? Like, you're still thinking while you're folding the laundry. It's just a question of what you're thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's being intentional um, about when you might think, because I think sometimes you can be like, okay, I need to carve out a whole hour to sit down with my notepad, and it's like, no, not necessarily. It can literally be on the school run today. I'm going to spend some time thinking about this, or like you said, when I'm folding laundry or whatever. So I think rather than making it into this big event that you have to set aside time for, it's how do you put it into what's already happening to make sure that it gets done.
Absolutely, and I would suggest that everyone listening to this already is, so kudos to you all for
Yeah,
carving out a few minutes.
absolutely. Like, even if it's after this podcast, you're like, oh, I listened to that. Now I'm going to take a few minutes to just process what was said and think about how that applies to me and my situation. I think that's fantastic. Um, can you share, are there any specific examples of kind of like transformation that you've seen when someone has taken this level of ownership of their leadership and themselves and said, yeah, I'm going to apply this? Can you share a bit of a before and after picture just to inspire people as to what's possible?
Sure, so one before and after picture is myself, and I wrote candidly in the book about, even though I did all the research on employee engagement, I got a master's degree in it, I teach these courses. When I had my son a few years ago, I experienced postpartum depression
Mm.
really deeply. Mostly because of sleep deprivation. I had a colicky baby who didn't sleep for a year, and it gets to you. And I cried all the time, feeling so powerless in that situation. And the thing that got me out of it was to apply everything I knew about our mindset at work and how predictive that is and how powerful we innately are to my journey in motherhood against a very cranky, not sleeping infant. And the results played out in a parallel way there too.
Mm.
So that would be one example that I would share is even though it's a different avenue, when I embraced radical accountability and learned to regulate myself and learned to operate in the face of uncertainty and control what I could in motherhood, that entire journey changed. And even it seems dumb, but like even though I'd seen it thousands and thousands of time in the workplace, I felt like it was reserved for that. And I realized through motherhood it was not.
Yeah.
Um, in the workplace, what I've seen is a couple of things. One, I have seen thousands of people climb the ladder if they wanted to do that.
Mm,
because they were able to speak with more clarity and more conviction. They were able to stay self-motivated longer. They were able to lead up in a way that was effective in power dynamics and building relationships with the people who ultimately got them promoted into more senior roles. So I've seen that play out a lot. I've also seen, and I don't advertise this to corporate clients, people quit their job after a few months of self-leadership
mm,
because they realize there wasn't the opportunity that they thought there was. And that's valid too. Again, I don't advertise that part to corporate clients. But I think both of those, being able to make rapid progress in a career or opt out of it, are valid.
mhm.
What you don't want to be is stuck for a lot of years in the middle of something that's not working and you're not excited about. So you will either, I guess, from my book, get promoted or realize you hate your job enough to leave it. And that can be your choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you leave, it's you finding the place that you're supposed to be. Like I always say to people, it's all about your impact and where you can make the most impact. And if you're in a role that's misaligned, it's hard to do that for yourself personally and for the organization that you're in. So being in a place where you get that awareness where you can then shift and move to where you need to go, it's a win-win
And better on
eventually.
your terms with empowerment and the wind at your back and momentum and agency versus a few years from now, you've been disengaged because you're disengaged. You don't add a lot of value to meetings because you don't add a lot of value to meetings. People think that you're not adding value to the organization. And then you get laid off and you're in the same spot without
Yeah,
this job feeling really different.
yeah,
So I think whether you want to be empowered in that moment or whether you want to be defeated is your choice.
yeah. So good. But I think the running theme here is that there's choice, right? There's choice in terms of how you show up, how you respond, and then what you choose to do next. So um, take it as it is a choice, because sometimes it can feel like you have no choice, but we always do.
You're always that choice of how you respond, what you think, what you believe, even when the circumstances are weird and squirrely and in some cases really challenging.
Yeah. Where can people find you? So if people want to learn more about this concept, obviously they're going to get your book, which we'll put the link to. Where else can people connect with you and follow the work that you're doing?
So my website, Elizabeth Lotardo, has a lot of my content on it. I post almost every day on LinkedIn, and I have a lot of LinkedIn learning courses. So if reading isn't your thing, I have 40 minutes on tips to lead yourself. Back to that, I don't have time to do it. You can watch it on your commute or listen to it on your commute. And I also have courses on purpose at work, leading without formal authority, all of these more human elements that we know make a big difference in our satisfaction and our success at work.
So good. We'll put all the links, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for taking the time to do the research and then converting that research into the book. So we can now all learn from it. I really appreciate that. And thank you for sharing with us.
Well, thank you for having me. And what I've seen in you and what I would hypothesize is present in your listeners is a commitment to self agency and a commitment to growth. Like people don't have to listen to podcasts, they don't have to try and improve. So I applaud that. And it's easy to think about all the ways that we can do better. But I would encourage you and everyone listening to pat yourself on the back for all the things that you've done. I mean, it's far ahead of, I would say, 90% of
Mm,
corporate America workers or international.
yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. How awesome is Elizabeth? I hope you're coming away feeling inspired to lead yourself more intentionally and effectively. There is so much that we can do. Often it can feel like things are outside of our control, and as things are changing and moving, we can feel a little bit anxious about the future. But if you double down and focus on leading yourself and building the right types of skills, you're going to set yourself up for success regardless of what happened. I hope you enjoyed our conversation as much as I did. Feel free to reach out to me or Elizabeth and let us know what your key takeaway was from this episode. That is all from me today. I will be back very, very soon. Until next time, look after yourself and keep moving towards your career goals.